All right, guys, it is Thursday and Ultimate Callout Challenge starts tomorrow.
Yeah, so we got one day to get ready for the show.
Now, by the time you see this video, this will be next week, but in honor of Ultimate Callout Challenge, I thought I'm finally ready to look at this thing. This is the engine that I blew up on the Dyno 2021.
2021.
And we brought it back and put it on a pallet. It's sat here for 4 years. And I just I don't even want to think about it. I don't care about it. I blew it up. I'm not ready, but now I think I'm ready.
I want to put this head on the flow bench and
see how good your stuff is now.
I could find in my notes what it flowed, but it'd be a lot more fun to float with the two-lipped valves to see how much damaged valves actually flow. So
this thing was just a wreck. This is built during COVID and we couldn't get good valves. And it ended up causing this catastrophic failure you see before you. We've never taken it apart. Like literally, I've never taken this thing apart since we blew it up. I left it all together. So today we're gonna take it apart, do some failure analysis, see why the heck this thing blew up. I mean, we have a pretty good idea why, but.
This is a good museum piece that we are destroying now.
Yes.
So history will never be able to analyze this later.
Well, there's some good parts on here I actually want to reuse in the future. We got, especially this top end stuff is pretty sweet. Anyway, let's start ripping this thing apart, and I think we're gonna start right here.
And don't mind the crude tools, because you would be dumb to reuse some of the parts, like head studs at that level, even though they might be fine. I don't know if they're okay, so we're gonna just rip this apart. The belt's broke, the camera chain broke. So first off, this thing has poked me 17 times, so I got to get rid of that.
Get rid of that. You do that, and I'll start taking the head studs off.
So normally I wouldn't use a crescent wrench on an A and fitting, but
it's already kind of mangled.
Oh, look at that! Just take the whole fitting out. It's like I got to save this. We won't be able to find this fitting later. Need a vise on this teardown bench.
This socket was built 4 years ago for this engine.
In fact, we've cracked those, so we usually would bring spares to UCC.
It's 11/16, but it won't fit. So we had to mill it down or lathe it down, I guess. Anyway.
See the whole studs coming out and everything.
Some of them.
Okay, so this is the oil filter relocation, so you had room for turbos. I think No Limit makes these.
Uh-oh. There you go.
This is all the bolts. But it's basically an oil cooler delete because the oil cooler sometimes will rupture at high pressure. All that's out of there. Oh, I'm gonna get these injectors out. Those are still good, I think.
Those John Deeres, man.
When you're working on a John Deere, you need a big wrench.
Gosh.
It's a little too big for the job. Look at that. Big ol' Haas. You can see daylight through the nozzle. You know it's big.
They were big.
I think those are 5x38s.
Yeah, they're monsters.
They're either 38s or 35s. I don't remember which set we were in on the dyno. I use Makita tools because they're lighter weight and they don't hurt my elbows and arms. But Todd, because he's a giant of a man, doesn't have a problem with heavy Makita or Milwaukee tools. The other Hamilton block made 2800 on the dyno, and this one came apart at 2375. So, and the other one is still together. In fact, I'm putting it together for my car.
It's right over there.
Can you imagine how much power we could make with this setup with power jet technology of today?
We would do a lot of things different to what we know now. It was a good setup, and it made great power, but we know more now.
For example, we would use a lot of nitrous on it.
I don't know. I still think it could do 3,000 fuel only.
Yeah, but we want to make 4,000.
Yes.
4 is the new 3.
So I'm really glad that this thing looks to be intact and fine. This is our SMT roller rocker assembly, aluminum rockers. This is an incredibly strong valve train assembly. It comes with a top end girdle. This is awesome. All your super high RPM, like super stock pullers, use something like this. This is ultra reliable, ultra high RPM, and I am very glad that we can reuse this and this didn't get blown up.
Basically just made $5 grand.
$5 grand right now. It's been sitting on the shelf.
That's wife math. If you don't have to spend money, if there's a coupon, you basically made the money.
That's right, we just made $5 grand. We did it because this is freaking awesome. These are really nice.
Oh yeah, look at that. Look Look at that, tractor technology on the old 12 valve. So this rubber hose is the return line because they don't have the hard return lines like stock. They've got these big nuts so that they can anchor these longer bodies and these huge DT style nozzles.
This is our triple valve spring. Well, it's actually dual valve spring with an isolator technically. But I mean, these are really, really high rate, awesome valve springs. These little caps you put on top of the valves, keep the valves fresh and set your lash.
It gives you a wide spot for that rocker arm to roll on too. So it doesn't mangle the top of your valves, stems.
So we got 2 of those remain. This is a very nice valve train setup. I mean, this is top of the line in the day. Still is pretty much top of the line. It's amazing. Catch a solid head. Okay.
There she goes. Should we, I'm trying to think where I want to put this. Man, that thing's heavy. All right, camera guy, come check this out. That's tuliped. So that means there's so much cylinder pressure that, boom, that's got beat in and tuliped. The exhaust valves look pretty good. So it's just the intakes that tuliped on this guy. Oh yeah, but that had the in-canal exhaust valves.
So his intakes we couldn't find.
So the firing head gasket looks mint. No blown, no fretting. I mean, this looks like it has less than 5 miles on it.
Meyer would reuse this. He would get new rings and he would use this gasket and it would work just fine. I wouldn't, but he would, and he'd say, see, it works fine.
It had all the crush on the fire rings.
Fire rings are all there. This is a 4.250 bore engine for those who care. So 105 thousandths is what they start at, and right now they are
93.
93, so 12 thousandths.
91.
91.
About 91.
So 14 thousandths of crush on this ring is what we achieved, those 14 mil head studs. This thing's like totally, you just take this somewhere, you could totally reuse that. That was totally in fine condition. I mean, all it's doing is moving a little oil. There's no water going through it or nothing. So it was just moving a little oil.
It was sealing up with
Oil and
combustion.
And the rings did their job in combustion.
What? This looks like it had a little combustion leak in here though. Look at that.
Oh, interesting. The gasket looks fine there.
Maybe that's just staining. Yeah, I would have blown the gasket out if it was there. So maybe it was just stuff sitting as the engine was sitting.
Yeah, I don't see any. Well, let's flip it over and look at the bottom end and see what broke. So where do you want to go?
Flash cap. I think one of these plastic J-jets came apart and it broke the whole block.
Yeah, these 2 are missing. That's what happened. J-jet failure.
Seriously, what really happened is it made too much power and it split the block. They break right at the cam tunnel. That's the weakest part on a Cummins block we found. And then right here where the main oil galley feeds across, see how this is split, right? That's where the main oil comes from this side and feeds. And then this is where the oil feeds the mains, that's these holes. So one thing some block manufacturers have been playing with is making these oil feeds smaller because then they're leaving more metal there. But really, these webs are too thin. If we can get more material in the block there.
Yeah, because this is a 450 bore and there's still a lot of room between and we could actually fatten that up a fair bit. Yeah, like when I broke my block for the first time on the drag strip, it broke on the cam tunnel. I think when Sean Baca broke his years ago, it broke the cam tunnel. So this block is the Hamilton solid block, and what this is a totally factory block with just solid iron around the cylinder bores. So everything north of the cylinder bores is as strong as you can get, solid iron. But nothing was stronger down here. It was factory, and so it just popped like a stock factory one would. So anyway, it's well known at this point, and nobody's trying to make big power on this block anymore.
Yeah, no fault to Hamilton or anybody. Nobody knew till you'd broken them where they were going to fail.
Yeah, this is the most power ever made on these blocks, and we still have another one of these blocks that you're going to make good power with. Not like 3,000 horsepower, but it's a very solid block for what it is. So.
The cam is MIA. Is that it?
That's it for that.
Man, look at that. That thing's mint. Look at that. That's what happens when stuff's flopping around.
Dude, you gotta come see this crank gear.
Gears.
Come look at this crank gear in here. I've never seen one that mangled. Look at this thing.
Crank gear. This billet cam gear's destroyed.
Rip the pump out.
Is the PDD timing gear still okay?
It looks like the PDD is what survived.
That might be reused in one of Will's builds. I'm the only one dumb enough to reuse something like this. Let's see if we got any chipped teeth. This is 100% wood send again.
It looks like
that is send worthy.
Maybe the drive for the, look how it pulled the cam retainer, like sucked it out. That's usually flat.
Flat. And then look here, this is the P pump. Nordlock. Those are just chilling in there. That's a piece of cast iron from something.
When you open up a front cover and you see this much metal lying around, you know you had a problem. I mean, if you're wondering if we had a problem, we blew it in half, we know now for sure.
I know the problem, Todd.
Oh, what?
The timing didn't slip.
Ah, yes. First time.
Kept all 42 degrees in there. Dude, that is a stout timing gear. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, a little mangled when the pump ripped out of the back, but I totally think some junkyard guy could use this. So comment below if you think that you could use this on your project. Plead your case and you may get a free used timing gear.
Ooh.
And if you're going over 1,000 horsepower, please don't use this. Could have fractures you can't see. I'd hate for you to have something similar because you used a free used part. Would not send again. That tool steel cam got ripped out of here. And if you guys saw in the photo, when it blew up, that cam was midair about right here from the engine, still spinning.
Yeah, it was.
So it pulled out of here, ripped, broke the weld. It was welded. See, the welds broke, cam retainer broke, and it mushroomed as it came out crooked. Is that the oil pump gear?
Oil pump gear looks better than the crank gear. Look how things is just, this whole thing just like, man.
Mangled.
Yeah. I've never seen a gear.
That's because the crank was spinning, had all the RPM and just turned down and ground on something.
It's a pump shaft nut.
Broke the pump shaft off, sheared that. I've never seen that. Look, that's the drive shaft for the injection pump. It sheared it right off. Nut's still there. So it was not a loose nut that caused the failure. That's 5/8 thick steel. And when this thing windowed and this rod came around, I bet the rod smacked it and bent the girdle down. Oh yeah, it's got some big dings in there. Look at that though, all these rods still spin. Like they probably still have decent bearings in them. Bearings. Oh my gosh. These things are mint.
Oh, wow.
Totally reusable. Look at those bearings. Coated. Coating is still intact. Dude, I built you a solid engine.
You can't complain about that.
Now these rods, they look a little egg-shaped from
Yeah, imagine.
pistons coming out and dings. So these are definitely not reusable. Well, there's people in this world that would try.
And they would be wrong.
That would be a mistake. That bearing,
Yeah, these things brand freaking new.
I mean, they look like they have less than 5 miles on them. That's my joke. So it was about a mile to the dyno maybe from where it drove. And then it drove a couple miles on the dyno during the run. And then it blew up.
And we did dyno this engine before.
Oh yeah, no, so it probably has like 10 miles on it.
Pull that crap. It's loose.
So 3, 4, and 5 all had great rod bearings in them. Rod bearing, mint. Number 2 is good. Oh, I can't use that bearing now. You dropped it.
That's too bad because it looks brand new.
So we did not have a rod bearing failure. Even with the rods flopping around, they look great. So what has the failure analysis taught us so far? Genuine block failure is what it looks like.
Yeah, there's nothing that gave up other than block was just literally overstressed. There was no, I mean, tulip valves obviously didn't help. Did you take rod bolts out of this one? I still have them.
Good, number 6 bearing's fine. Let's see what the bearing on the rod side looks like. Normally you'd have some scratches through there if there's any trash. I mean, those bearings totally, I would reuse them. These are VXKs, so they're coated V bearings, extra clearance.
Yeah. Always like the V bearings.
They're a little more money, but honestly, another 20, 30 bucks on the whole set of bearings. Let's flip her over and see what we get. It's a good sound. Should I get that tray?
Yes, you should.
It's a Teardown pro tip. Steal a baker's tray from your wife's kitchen.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Just try to make sure we got everything out of there.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so it's ready for teardown. This is my Doyle AN wrench. Bet you guys didn't know Harbor Freight made AN wrenches. That's a 15-inch size for big AN fittings. Yeah, this one's butchered too. All right, what time is it? Time for me to go?
We're getting close, man. You're this deep. Will's got to fly to UCC. He's literally driving down to drive to the airport. He's flying to UCC, but he's got to know. Why does the crank not spin? It's driving him crazy. Okay, where that little pry bar you had.
You don't need it. We made this serviceable. We didn't glue the pan on. Look at that. Oh, there's a rag in there. I put that in last night so that it wouldn't have as much oil. Yeah, that one was loose.
Interesting.
Maybe the block's cracked under there.
Yeah.
It's still there, but it was definitely loose. I hear metal in here. Look what's in the pickup tube. Came backwards through the oil suction side out of the oil pump.
Oh my gosh.
Because there's no way it got through the screen on the bottom.
No way.
Yeah. Crank still will not spin. So, we dig deeper. So these two were loose, but there are an awful lot of, oh, there's cracks right through the bore on them. That's probably why they were loose. Something about a crank beating on them.
Another one. Sorry.
The failure was most likely the engine block.
Everywhere.
The whole girdle lifted with that one. Oh, another piece of the block just fell off. This girdle was holding the block together.
Together it was, yeah.
Probably. That whole main cam, everything wants to come with it. Just lift the girdle off.
So this is a style girdle where you have little bars across on the top of your cap. You machine them, it's flat across the top. I think you're not going to win that one.
Nope. There was a failure in this section right here. Will the crank spin? Oh, it spins! Crank, it's got to be bent. It's pretty tight.
Oh yeah. We got to pop this thing off over here so we can pull the crank out.
How do the main bearings look though? I don't know. Main bearings, there's a little bit of trash that went through it, but that is totally fine. Considering the upper shell of that one doesn't even have a saddle to sit in. That one looks beautiful.
Yeah, double thrust. Keep
So-
that one so you can double thrust.
Yeah, I'm gonna use this to double up a block. So you can put a thrust bearing on here when you want extra thrust capacity. See this machined surface there? So this is the number 6 cap. Normally the thrust bearing's in the block on that side, but you can double it up.
Another $5.
Basically made $5. It's just got a little chip there, but otherwise, that's still good. We'll have to think about that. Ooh, that one's a little destroyed. So check out that bearing. We got a little damage here, but once again, these came apart and there's oil and stuff mixing around, so that's probably post-failure.
Look at this whole side of the block. It was all held together with a girdle. This was all here a few minutes ago, all being held up with this girdle. The girdle came off. It just fell off like rain. The block just rained down. It's wild. Would you let the crank out?
You can.
Where do you want to go?
Up. And that looks mint. I mean, look at that. Barely thrusting at all. Those are good bearings.
All right, guys. Final analysis. I think the block failed.
It
Catastrophically.
crumbled under all that impacts and stuff going on and blew up.
It is so much. It was such a violent explosion.
I'm a fan of girdles, though. I think had there not been a girdle, I think the crank might have come out of the block and got loose. I think the girdle kind of kept the crank and the rods from hitting people.
Yeah, really, it probably did. Yeah, so this was my last time at UCC. I hope we have none of this year UCC. I wouldn't be surprised either way because people are going for big power there. That's kind of the place you go for big power.
3,000 plus is what on everybody's menu.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of this, but I mean, I hope for everybody's sake we don't. And yeah, but this was a catastrophic failure. And it's been 4 years we've been thinking about this stupid thing. I've been thinking about it and just hating it, and one of the parts are good, but
I'm happy to have the floor space this has been consuming for all those years. Like, it was just one pallet, but we've moved it 3 times.
We'll probably clean it up nice and make a nice coffee table out of it or something like that. I don't know, that's kind of Will's forte. So anyway, you got to go to UCC, you got to paint it.
Yeah, I got to catch planes, so I'm out of here.
So anyway, guys, that's the Godfather's last engine, the thing that blew it up, twisted the frame, blew it to pieces.
2,300 horsepower, 4,200 RPM when it came apart, still going up.
Hope everybody has a good time at UCC this year. Hope it's fun. By the time you see this, it's over. So hope we saw some new records. Pulling for Josh, of course. Go, Josh. And yeah, thanks, guys.